Hey, good morning. Today is Friday. It is the 20th day of Elul. And today's extra 3 chapters in Tehillim, we say 58, 59, and 60. And again, we're going to start with Tzedakah. Leila Tzedakah Shemekareves es HaGeula. And we're going to complete the letter 16. That we started yesterday. And here in this letter, the Alter Rebbe talks about the importance of giving tzedakah even when it's difficult. And even, as we said yesterday, the Alter Rebbe was writing to a community that was a poor community. And because of their difficult times, they reduced in their charity giving, and Alter Rebbe wrote to them why it's important and that not to reduce in the charity giving, and on the contrary, that this would be the blessings. So yesterday the Alter Rebbe mentioned about that when you give to people who are in need, you cannot have, even based on the law, the Torah laws, you cannot have your luxury while someone else is lacking the necessities. If someone else's life he doesn't have enough to live, then you cannot have your luxuries before you make sure the other person has in order to survive. Today, in the second half of the letter, the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain, and he gives us 5 points why one should not be so careful, meaning when you look at the other person to see whether is that really a necessity for him, is that really his important needs, he cannot survive without this. So the Alter Rebbe gives us 5 reasons why we should give tzedakah, and we should give without judging too much the other person, whether the other person deserves it or not, why it's good for the person who gives. And we're going to go through these 5 reasons that Alter Rebbe says. So let's inside. Says the Alter Rebbe, V'hine, Zeu al pi shura sadin gamo. Now the above follows the exact requirements of the law. In other words, what we just explained is that if someone is in need, it's a question of life, and you have enough to live, but you don't have your extras, that is required by law to go help the other person before you get your extras. But, says the Alter Rebbe, but the truth is, even in a case that you don't feel that is the case, you don't feel that the other person is really in such a dire need, then, says the Alter Rebbe, it's not good to go check the background to make sure that how much the person deserves it or not. Says the Alter Rebbe, Aval be'emes, the truth is, Gam imu inyan de lo yishayach kol kach haytayma, even in a case where such reasoning does not so fully apply. Meaning, even if when one is called upon to share not luxurious, but one's own slice of bread. In other words, on the one hand, even if you yourself have just enough to survive. Or when B, the poor are not crying out for food and clothing, but for other essentials. So one would say, okay, in that case, maybe I don't have to give up my essentials to help the other person. Says the Alter Rebbe, don't do that. ראוי לכל אדם שלא לדקדק להעמיד על הדין. It is not proper that any man insists on the letter of the law. רק לדחוק חיה ולהיכנס לפני ולפנים משור הסדין. Rather, he should impose austerity on his own life, pushing himself, and go far beyond the demands of the letter of the law. And so he gives us, as we said, 5 reasons why you should go beyond the letter of the law when he gives tzedakah. It says, number 1, it says, he says, moreover, one should be concerned for his own sake with the teaching of our sages of blessed memory, that even in a situation when that which is yours take precedence over that which belongs to the others, he who is exacting in this matter and does not go beyond the letter of the law will eventually be brought to this matter, meaning that he himself will ultimately need charity, God forbid, heaven forbid. So that's number 1. It says if you're going to become very insistent and following the law exactly to measure, then it can, God forbid, happen to you also. There's the story that I mentioned before about this tzaddik Rabbi Shlomo Vanipoli. He was a poor man, and there was one person in his town. One day gave him a nice amount for tzedakah, and that day the person had a very, very successful day in the business and made a lot of money. And at the end of the day, he thought, how come he made so much money today? And if you remember that in the morning, he gave some tzedakah to Reb Zusha. And then so he decided to give him on a regular basis. So he started giving tzedakah to Reb Zusha. And sure enough, his business flourished and became very successful. One day he comes to shul and he sees Reb Zusha is not there. So he asked, where is Reb Zusha? So he told him he went to Mezrich to his Rebbe. He says, what? Reb Zusha has a Rebbe? So if Reb Zusha is a tzaddik, he's a holy man, his Rebbe must be a bigger tzaddik. So he made his calculations and he says, I'll go now to Mezrich, to the Rebbe of Reb Zusha, and I'll give tzedakah to his Rebbe. And then surely I'll see much more blessings. And that's what he did. He started giving. He came to Mezrich, and he gave tzedakah to the Mezrich Magid. However, things turned south. Ever since he stopped giving to Reb Zusha and he gave to the Rebbe of Reb Zusha, he started losing a lot of business. And then he came to Reb Zusha and he told him, I don't understand. I gave you tzedakah and everything, and I saw blessings. And when I gave to your Rebbe tzedakah, I lost everything. And Reb Zusha explained to him and says, my Rebbe is certainly a greater tzaddik than me. But when you gave me, you didn't go make a background check. What level am I? You just gave. So from Hashem, they also didn't check on you. But once you decided to make your calculations and you're checking who is bigger, I'm going to give to the person who has a bigger, who deserves it more, who is a bigger tzaddik, then from heaven, they started checking on you. And to see whether there are other people who deserve it more than you. And he got the message. So this is not reason number 1, says the Alter Rebbe, that when you give the tzedakah without any cheshbonos, without any calculations, then you have gonna from Hashem is gonna act in the same way. Reason number 2 says the Alter Rebbe, he says, after all of us need mercies of heaven at all times. I don't know anybody who doesn't need help from Hashem. People need help, whether it's for health, whether it's for parnasa, whether it's for children, whether it's for shidduch, whether it's nachas from the children. We constantly need rachamei shamayim. We need mercies of heaven for us. Now, how does it come? How do we get the rachamei shamayim? Says the Alter Rebbe, very simple. When we have compassion on others, that itself triggers compassion from Hashem upon us. It says, this mercies from heaven is elicited only through the arousal from below at all times and at every moment. By arousing our compassion for those who are in need of compassion. Whatever But whoever hardens his heart and suppresses his compassion, for whatever reason, causes the same above, the suppression of the divine compassion. God forbid, heaven forfend. So what is the Alter Rebbe saying? He's saying what your action triggers a reaction above. It's not just a punishment if you're being stubborn, if you suppress your compassion. It is an automatic reaction. We mentioned before the Mizritcha Magid says, is the verse that says Hashem tzilcha. Hashem tzilcha means God, literally, simply, it means God is your shade. It's like a shade. When the sun, you need protection, God is your shade. But the Mizritcha Magid explains this to mean Hashem tzilcha, God is your shadow. So when you move your hand, the shadow moves the hand. Whatever you do here, you trigger Hashem to act in the same way. So therefore, when you bring about, you arouse your compassion to others, that triggers automatically that you should be compassion upon you. So that's reason number 2, why we should give without any calculations. Then says the Alter Rebbe, reason number 3, reason number 3, says the Alter Rebbe, none of us is perfect. Every person commits a sin here or there, once in a while, once in a blue moon. Each person knows that there's no such thing a person that doesn't have any sins. And when we have sins, we need forgiveness. And when you need forgiveness, there's a amazing thing that tzedakah brings amazing forgiveness, more than the offerings of the sin offerings in the temple. Sin offerings in the temple would be only forgiving unintentional sins. But tzedakah, when a person gives tzedakah, it helps to forgive even the intentional sins. So this says the Alter Rebbe, Magam ki odam ein tzadik ba'oretz asher yaseh tov tamid v'lo yachta. After all, furthermore, there's not a righteous person upon earth who does good always and does not sin. And tzedakah atones and protects against misfortune and the like. And charity is thus an actual cure for body and soul. It helps your soul, of course, but also your body. With respect to which it is written, skin for skin, a limb for a limb, and all that a man has, he will give for his soul to save his life. Just like when someone throws at you something, you raise your hand to protect your head. Your hand can get hurt, but it's going to protect your head. So you give skin for skin. But here, says the Alter Rebbe, when you give the tzedakah, there's no calculations when it comes about to save your life. If you need a medicine, a life-saving medicine, you're not going to say, "Oh, wait a second, I need money to survive. I cannot buy the medicine." This is survival. Says the Alter Rebbe, giving the tzedakah is survival both for your soul and for your body. That's reason number 3. Then says the Alter Rebbe, reason number 4, another interesting concept, says the Alter Rebbe. When you give tzedakah, says the Rebbe, it is what you're doing, you are lending to God. God borrows from you to give to the poor person. And therefore, it just makes sense. It's a good investment. You're lending to Hashem, and Hashem pays you double in this world and in the next world. And the Alter Rebbe is going to say that the mitzvah of tzedakah is the only mitzvah that the reward is in this world as well. Why? Because this is a mitzvah that you do with literally helping people. Says the Alter Rebbe, "B'shegam onu ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim, ki tzedakah eino rak alvor l'Akadosh Baruch Hu." How much more does this apply when we are believers, the descendants of believers, in the fact that charity is nothing other than a loan to the Holy One, blessed be He. God needs a loan from you to give to the poor person. Kedichsiv, as it says, Malve Hashem choinen dal ugmulo yeshalom loy. It is written, He who is gracious unto the poor lends unto God. Malve Hashem choinen dal. And He will repay him his good deed. And the Alter Rebbe says, "Bekiflayim ba'olam hazeh," twofold in this world. In addition, what He gives in the next world. The schar kol hamitzvos is leke ba'olam hazeh. For performance of none of the commandments is rewarded in this world, levad mitzedakah, except for charity. Why is charity the exception that is getting the reward even in this world? Lefishu toiv labrius, because it is beneficial to creatures. So being that it is beneficial to creatures, that's why Hashem gives the reward here in this world. As is written at the end of the first chapter of Kiddushin, the Talmud, the tractate Kiddushin. And finally, says the Alter Rebbe also, reason number 5, why is it important to be part of giving the tzedakah? Says the Alter Rebbe, when the community raises money together, don't exclude yourself from the community. Because when people are collectively doing a mitzvah, our sages tell us you have to be part of it. And if you exclude yourself, it's not good things coming. So being that this is a community thing and people participate together, you want to be part of this mitzvah that the community is doing collectively. says Alter Rebbe, וגם ישלוחש לו עונש, חס ושלום, כשחבריו נמנים לדבר מצווה והוא לא נמנע מהם. Also, one should be concerned about punishment, heaven forfend, when one's companions associate for the sake of a mitzvah, and he does not join them. Kanoida Mimai Marazal, as is known from the words of our sages of blessed memory, will teach that standing aside in such circumstances is an instant of an absence for which one cannot again be counted. So this is something that our sages tell us, when the community does something good, make sure to be among them. So the Alter Rebbe concludes, V'lashoimim yunam, and may life be pleasant to those who give heed, those who listen. V'tovoy aleim birchas toiv, and may blessings of all kinds of goodness rest upon them, b'chol milei demeitav, in all kinds of goodness. Eitivo Hashem latoivim v'yesharim. Act benevolently, O God, towards the good and the upright. And Alter Rebbe concludes, Kenafsham v'nefesh hadeire shloima mekolei v'nefesh. As is their wish, and as is the wish of the rider who seeks their welfare with all his heart and soul. What is Alter Rebbe saying here? He's giving them the blessings that Hashem should wish them, should bless them with all the goods of their own wishes, and it should be with the goods of the wishes of the rider, meaning the Alter Rebbe himself, what he wishes for them. Because sometimes we wish for things and we're not sure, we don't know if that is good for us. That's why we go, we ask Hashem, it should be what is good for us. And the tzaddik knows what is good for us. So that's why he says it should be with your wishes and with the wishes of the tzaddik that seeks your good. You're making an investment, you think this is good for you? It might be good, might be not. But the tzaddik knows whether this thing is good for you. So the tzaddik gives the bracha that the good will be in every way possible. There was once a meshulach who was collecting tzedakah for an institution, and he came to one of the regular donors, and the donor told him, this year I'm sorry, I cannot make it. There's a hardship. I cannot give tzedakah this year. I cannot give you. So the guy told him, he gave him a metaphor. There is the horse and wagon, they're going, and they come to a place, and the horses cannot pull, become very, very heavy load, and they realized that they need to take off some of the load in order to be able to continue. And one wise guy tells them, why don't you take off, look, those wheels, they're very, very heavy. Take off the wheels, it'll be lighter. Obviously, when you're cutting off, you want to take off some weight, don't take off the wheels. The tzedakah are the wheels that carry you, that make the whole wagon go. I had a personal case in the Chabad house here. There was once, without mentioning any names, a person who was giving tzedakah, and he had the hard times, and I stopped. He didn't give as much, and then one day he started giving again, and he tells me that he had difficulties in Parnasa. So he went to his rabbi and he asked him advice. And the rabbi told him, Was there any charitable cause that he used to give and he stopped? And he told him yes. So he told him, resume the giving. And ever since then, that person, the giving, Baruch Hashem, keeps increasing. And this is more success. And that's a personal story that I know personally with our Chabadas here. So there's no question. This is one of the things that Hashem says, any mitzvah, you're not supposed to test God. Tell, I'm going to do the mitzvah and I'm going to test you if I'm going to get my reward. The only mitzvah that God says, I want you to please test me, is the mitzvah of tzedakah. Test me. See, if you give tzedakah, if you give charity, 10% from the income, you'll see that the blessing is going to come upon you many folds. So let us continue to do good things. And of course, tzedakah is not only in the literal sense in money. Tzedakah is also being charitable with helping other people when they're poor in the spiritual sense. Don't only care for your family, for your immediate family. Say, I'm going to provide for my family some spiritual education, Jewish education. Be charitable with your education. Reach out to those people who, for whatever reason, did not see the light, did not get the proper Jewish education, and be charitable to them to also in the spiritual sense. And Hashem will be charitable with us and will give us the light physically, the blessings physically and spiritually, the blessings of a ksiva v'chasimateva, a good gebenchtir in every aspect, and ultimately the light of Mashiach, very soon, amen. Thank you so much for joining. Shem and Sunday.